I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Project Architect 2. So today I want to dive into some more tech-related mods and also storage mods, but first we have a major tech thing that I really want to do, and you're going to probably love this. I essentially want to take this room that I just spent a little bit of time putting together and working on, and I want to create a schematic for it and move it over here. Now, there is another building mod that I've not really touched on just yet, and that is Create. Now, Create is in here, and while you do not have to do a lot of Create until in-game, if you don't absolutely want to, it is kind of recommended if you want to build to utilize the schematic cannon. To get started with the Create schematic cannon, we just need to simply craft it. It actually doesn't require any Create progression to be able to make this, and we also need some blue dye. So I'm going to go ahead and craft that real quick. And this is used to make an empty schematic, which you're only going to need one empty schematic. And also, if you want to create schematics, you're going to need the schematic and quill. So this requires some feathers. Let's grab those. Feather, there we go. And yes, so this put together, or I guess I was wrong on the empty schematic. You do need two, I guess, if you're going to craft the other one, because you do need an empty schematic and the actual schematic and quill. So the way that the schematic and quill is going to work, we can go ahead and find the center of the room, and then I can start to drag out to what I would think is close to an area where we want to create a schematic. And then I can hold down different keys to pull this out. So I can hold down Control, and then I can actually drag this out with my scroll wheel. And I can also, while I'm inside, I should be able to, for example, fly up here, hold down Control, and I can scroll wheel to bring this up. If you're inside of this, it will extend it from your point of view, which is a very nice thing to do. And I want to extend this out like so. And then I'm also going to need to extend this up until I see that this has essentially disappeared right there. That's when I know that it is completely encompassed the area that I want. And just like that, this whole room is beside the floor is now covered. Now the whole room is now selected inside of this area. Super easy to do. It's a 13 by 13 by 14 apparently. And all I got to do is simply right click and then name it. And we'll name it main room schematic. And when I save this, this is actually stored into the schematic folder, and we can access that schematic folder from the schematic table here. So there's a folder right here, which will pull it right up. It's just in the root of your Modpack folder, but this right here will be a scrollable list of all the schematics you've created or ones that you've placed in there. Because you can build something in Creative, create a schematic of it, it will store it in that file and will exist in all other worlds. Pretty darn cool. Now, to load that schematic, this room right here, I'm going to place the schematic empty one in here, and I'm just going to load it in. And this is where things get interesting. So you can see now I have a box that I can start to place this in, and I'm just going to right click it for right now because we have a ton of commands. By holding left alt, we can drag through this and change our position and our rotation. First of all, I definitely want to get the rotation set. So once you get this done, then you can hold down Control and scroll wheel to change the rotation. It's got a super cool animation. You can also mirror, so you can flip these things around, and it's very, very useful. The Y, I'm going to bring it down as well. Like I said, hold down Control and scroll wheel, and I'm going to move its current position away from me, which will be right here. Now, I should be able to line this up exactly the way I have it here. So I have the 3 blocks. And that should also be the 3 blocks you can see right here. So 1, 2, 3. And this technically, where it currently sets, is the position that it just copied from the other side. And now with that saved, we can place down our schematic cannon. And we should be able to get a list. So I just have to make a barrel or grab a barrel out of here. And I will put a barrel next to this. And this is any inventory that is connected to the schematic cannon will work here, by the way. But I just want that placed in next to it. We are going to also need gunpowder. So this does run off of gunpowder. And so I'll place the gunpowder in the gunpowder slot up here. To get a checklist of all of the items required, we need to load our schematic. And we're also going to need a clipboard. And a clipboard is very, very useful in its own right, allowing you to take notes and all kinds of fun stuff. Let's go ahead and make our first bit of andesite. But there we go. So once we have a clipboard, like I said, this can be used to take notes in your game. You can put anything you want in here, but its primary use is for the schematic cannon. So let's go ahead and load what we just set, and we just set its position. Once it's in here, we can actually go ahead and place in our clipboard to get a checklist. And so now we know all of the individual things that we're going to need. Now, you don't need everything. Of course, we don't need all of the stone. What we really need is just the large tiles and anything that is our primary focus as far as this particular interior space goes. Now, once you think you have everything, definitely reapply your checklist here and it will rescan the inventories that are connected. And there you go. So I think we have everything. I'm missing these tiles. I'm not super worried about it, and the light fixtures. Everything else should be fine, and it is checkmarked green when it is ready to go. Now, there's a couple of settings we are going to have to go and play with in the printer settings here. And these are very important because what we do want right here, it says do not replace any solid blocks, replace solid with solid. That is important. And then currently there's another one, replace solid with any. And then there's also replace solid with empty as well. All of these are great. We definitely want to skip missing blocks if at all possible. Also, protect entities is typically a good idea so you don't break like chests and stuff and mobs. But what we want, I believe, is we want it to clear an area. So the cannon will clear all blocks in the working area, including those replaced by air. And this is actually the setting that I believe we want. This one says the cannon will replace solid blocks in the working area if the schematic contains a block at that location. So I recommend doing the air one since I do want it to actually clear out the area that is around it. Now it shouldn't interact with these blocks because its working area is going to be right in here. So as soon as I'm ready, now that I've got those settings in place, I just hit the play button. And what this is going to do is it is going to start slowly but surely in this area, clearing it out. Now this can be accelerated with the Gadgets Against Grind bag, which we'll eventually make, which will allow us to accelerate blocks. But for right now, this is the speed at which it's going to go. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but that's going to give me just enough time to figure out exactly how we're going to set up the storage. Okay, so idea. Power, right? Power first and then worry about storage. I feel like if we get a storage setup too early, we're going to really struggle with our power setup. And I think that is going to cause a little bit of a pain point. So I think today is definitely worth getting into power, and I'm thinking about diving into thermal for this. I really love the thermal mod, and well, with thermal and thermal dynamics really is going to involve lava. Or at least it is for me. Now to really get started with this and to also optimize our starting power, we're going to need a couple machines. First of all, we're going to need the multi-servo press. We're also going to need a magmatic dynamo, and we're also going to need a hose pulley. And we're going to need a way to chunk load the nether. And this is all going to be wrapped into our part in quote of, well, doing some research on the nether. And we're going to be bringing some lava from the nether to the overworld in order for us to do that research. So notice we need a copper plate right here. We can either go the route of doing it via create, or I think just doing the multi-servo press is probably going to be the easiest method. Now, typically you'd probably go through the progression of making an induction smelter, but in our case, we don't actually have to. We can go ahead and make it directly via crafting just with some fire charges, and fire charges are incredibly cheap with EMC. So super simple to kind of get this up and running. I also went ahead and made the magmatic dynamo, and I'm going to grab for right now my basic container of lava that we all farmed manually. Ooh, and while I'm at it, I might as well go under the quest section, and this is a part of the thermal power, and we might get something nice to help us with power. Oh, we got a numismatic dynamo, which is a pretty interesting dynamo, allowing you to essentially make a, for example, an iron farm generate power. You can turn those iron ingots into coins using thermal, and you can generate power from those coins. Oh, and by the way, it looks like the room is pretty much done, and this is exactly what this mod does. The create schematic cannon is so nice. This would have taken me a significant amount of time to redo on this side, so it's best if you've already done it, might as well copy it and allow a machine to paste it on the other side, saving you a ton of effort. So now back to the mod stuff, and I'm gonna go ahead and place my magmatic dynamo right here. And I am going to need a fluid pipe to get the fluid from the tank right here to this temporarily, just to start generating a little bit of power. It's not going to generate a whole bunch, but it's going to be enough to at least power our multi-servo press, which we are going to need, and we are going to need to press up some copper. So just like that, we are working our way towards, power freedom very, very soon, or at least a nice amount of power. So back into create, I want to grab myself a hose pulley, right? It's a hose pulley, just like that. And we should have everything. Oh, that's right. We are going to need to do our first like little create thing. Now, the reason I'm going for this is because create has an amazing way of pulling infinite fluids of things. If you have a source container that has 10,000 source blocks of a material, then you will be able to infinitely pull fluid from that reservoir. And one of the best ways to do that is to do a 16 by 16 chunk. So take a chunk and make sure that chunk is 40 deep, and you can actually use the hose pulley as well to fill that area. It's just pretty awesome. All right, so I'm going to take this and some copper, and what I want to do is use my axe, and we just need to strip this and then right click the copper on here, and that's going to give us the casing. This is something that you'll probably want to automate later on if you're going to be getting into a lot of create stuff. Anyways, now I want to go ahead and put this all together with the hose pulley, voila, and also make sure I have a hand crank. And now we need to find a decent spot in the nether. Now, there is something else I need to actually get into first, now that I think about it. How am I going to get the fluid from the nether into the overworld, like back into here? Well, there's actually a few ways we can do it, but one of the easiest ways is to get into the Ender mod. So the Ender storage mod. And I have the Ender storage mod that has the Ender tank that actually auto outputs, which is pretty cool as well, and is going to be very useful for our setups. And this is relatively cheap in my current state. And by the way, I am going to need 2 of them. I need one to be in the location that receives and one to the location that receives it. However, you can have more than 2. You can have like 5 senders and 5 receivers. It doesn't really matter. They're all going to be linked so long as the top section here is set to the appropriate channel. And those little wool looking buttons can be dyed, and that's how you set your channel. And if you're on a server, you are going to want to right click this with a diamond, and that is going to lock it specifically to your player data, not just what everyone can use on the server. Now, I think I found the perfect place in the nether right here, and it's relatively safe. It's in a safe biome. Everything should be all and well. And what I need to do is build out above, for example, a lava pool, just like this one. The closer I am to the edge, I guess the better it would be. But I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure we're all good. And then when I place this hose pulley, I believe that when you place it, whatever is to the right of where you're going to place is going to be where the actual pump is going to be for this. So there it is. There's the pump outlet. And then on the back is where we're going to have the place to give it stress. So we just need to give it enough stress to lower the hose pulley until it stops. And so we can see this, visually see it going down, and it has stopped. Now, to be able to know if we have an infinite source, we should get the achievement called tapping the mantle, but you would probably need some goggles from Create in order to fully see if it says bottomless. But if you get the tapping the mantle, then you know that you have achieved infinite lava. So hopefully we get that, but it'll only happen once we initiate our pump here. So let's go ahead and get this done. So I have the pipe on here that should be able to pull out, and then we set that to pull, and there you go. We have tapping the mantle, pump from a body of lava large enough to be considered infinite. And there it goes. So now we have infinite lava, but if you hit F3G, make sure when you place this thing, you place it within a chunk. Don't kind of like cross chunk bounds. It'll just make it easier so that way you can just chunk load the chunk you're in. And the best way to do that is opening up the FTP chunks and finding the chunk you're in right here, which I am in this particular chunk, and just chunk loading one chunk. And you should be fine, so long as this thing right here is chunk loaded. Now, just to make sure I don't run out, I want to put an advanced pipe upgrade in here that is going to allot for a lot more transfer speed, being able to pull out of this hose pulley. Now, instead of the janky setup I had before, I can simply just take our lava tank that's infinite, and I can right click this, and that is now going to auto send lava into the magmatic dynamo or into any pipe without even needing to have an extract mode on it. Now, this dynamo by itself is pretty good. It generates 40 RF per tick, but that's not a whole lot as of right now out of 1. So we can actually apply some augmentations here in order to get this way, way higher. I believe up to like 640 RF with just base regular thermal series upgrades. And that's not even accounting for the fact that we have higher tier versions that we can use later on for generating even more power. And I think for beginning, this is actually a pretty easy mod to understand. Now, the power mod that is in here can generate far, far more power overall, but does require a lot more crafting steps in my opinion. 100% will be getting into power, believe me. It's one of my favorite mods for transferring power from one location to another wirelessly. Right now, we're in the early stages of research, which mean we are starting a little bit lower. Now, I need to start working on these hardened components, and this is going to require me to craft a few things, right? We need definitely a hardened integral component. That's our starting point. So a few of those. Let's get a bunch of redstone. This component right here will automatically like make our generator a bit better, but we do have the ability to go ahead and craft some other things. Like we need to craft some electrum, right? All of this fairly simple since we have all of the ingots for it. I prepped up a bunch of ingots from the ore, got them all smelted down. But here we go. Signalium. This is our first one. That'd be a little bit more challenging, but man, the fire charge recipes for all of these just make it so effortless, and I love these fire charge recipes. This is going to take the prior craft. There we go. We have the reinforced now, and then we got to get up to resonant, which is going to require lumium, which is another, like I said, it just requires some glowstone. All of this EMZ-able stuff we definitely have. Lot of work to get to this point so far, but here we go. There's our lumium, and then we need resonant ender. Now, this is where we actually need another machine. And that is because diamond requires a pulverizer. So after getting that pulverizer made, I can just toss in some diamonds and let that get started. And I can put some augments in here as well. We can go ahead and get these augments in. Even though I need these augments to technically be upgraded, we will take them out when we do upgrade. So notice that immediately jumped this up to 120 RF per tick. But this goes way, way higher once we actually start working on getting auxiliary reaction chamber upgrades inside of this machine. So this is going to actually require some signalium plates. So I might as well also get those plates processed up in the multi-servo while I'm waiting for diamonds to process. So I think I have enough of these materials for right now, and now's where the fun begins. Okay, so I'm going to take this out of here and this as well. And let's go ahead and now upgrade into at least resonant. Eventually this will all be done via auto crafts. It'll be so easy to do. Make sure we have all of our lumium. There we go. And I've even made the hardened material here, which is very nice. This does not need to be quartz dust. It can actually be quartz itself. And there we go. So 2 of those. Now we have our upgrades. And now to make the auxiliary reaction chamber, which is going to be for our dynamo, that is going to require some silver. And we need 3 of these to max out the power production. So now that we have this, we can actually see its true potential. Well, its beginning potential, because there are other mods in here, but there we go. So now we're producing 640 RF per tick with infinite lava that is coming directly from the tank above it and is able to power multiple machines and is also scalable. For right now, we're just powering one of these dynamos, but keep in mind, these are pretty cheap to make and we can scale this up significantly. Now we're diving into thermal, and I also want to be able to make the, well, special bag from Gadgets Against Grind, which is called the Temporal Pouch, which is going to be like a time in the bottle, if you're familiar with that. Basically, it's going to grow with us, and we're going to be able to use that stored time to accelerate machines. This is going to be very important, but to be able to get this, we're going to need like Nautilus shells and things. Now, I could definitely grind out the Nautilus shells for this and probably find them out in the ocean, but there's several other drops that I also want from the ocean. So in this sort of endeavor, I might as well use thermal since we have it available to us. And the best way that we can kind of farm the ocean for many things, including sponge, is going to be using an aquatic entangler. And this right here has some fancy things we can do with it. We can give it some feed in the ocean, chunk load it, and gather a bunch of materials. Keep in mind, there's a couple of different foods we can use. One is a junk net, which is not necessarily a food, and it actually doesn't get consumed like the other ones, and it can go inside here and can generate like all kinds of crazy stuff between, like, I believe name tags, any like junk fishing item, it can gather up. But we also have Aqua Chow, which is going to grant more fish in like a normal fisher, which is very nice as well. But the Benethic, I believe, benthic aqua chow. This stuff right here is what is actually amazing. So it's going to require some beetroot and some lead. And if we use a bunch of this, oh boy, like this is where we start to get a lot of things from ocean biomes. So I'll just craft up a few of these just like that. And then what I'm going to want is a barrel. So I'm probably going to make like a diamond barrel just to contain all of the stuff that it can generate. Now, all you have to do to set this up is to simply place the aquatic entangler in the water or in the ocean like this. It does need to be in the ocean if you want to get certain drops, and just put your chow in this slot. And I've also augmented it with the integral component here and then hooked it up with a pipe. It does have an internal inventory, but it is not going to be big enough for the things that we are getting. For example, here's just a few things we are getting. For example, we get tridents from here, and it looks like we also get tridents with apotheosis abilities, which is nice, some seagrass, a bunch of different random stuff, and you just want to make sure that you keep this chunk loaded. Now, I'm probably going to have to either do my own fishing, if this doesn't actually fish up the item I need, or I'm going to have to go drown hunting, which is another possible way of getting some of those nautilus shells. But until then, I've got some big plans. Okay, so hear me out. I'm thinking about expanding our thermal power that we just set up, and I want to take this power right here from the dynamo, and I want to set up a very interesting sort of reactor looking build that is going to go inside this room. This is 11 deep. And so we could place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 9 to get this a nice fitting. And we can get a circle basically of 9 of these dynamos. If I did my math correctly, we're going to need about 36 of these. Perfect. And the way that I want to get them arranged is probably going to require me to have the hammer from this mod. So from thermal, we'll make our crescent hammer. And this will allow us to rotate the machines. We're definitely going to need to be rotating the machines. So there we go. That's ready to go. And to kind of get an idea first and foremost of how this is going to look, these are going to have the power nodes on the outer side. And this is not going to be one in the middle. It's going to be like this. And this one's correct. That one's now correct. And that one's now correct. And this one's now correct. I think I'm going to bring this also up one. Boy, oh boy, this is going to be a process, but there we go. So, and then I can add some supports on the bottom to make this look a little bit better. But essentially, we're going to have a lava pipe coming from this ender tank that is going to lead through these. And if these are going to get upgraded over time, this should generate a ton of power. I've almost got them all rotated into the correct position. And there we go. So yeah, it kind of looks like a little mini reactor that we got going on down here. And I just need to get the lava flowing through the middle, and crawling through this tiny space, well, that requires another mod. And to you, I present the personal shrinking device. Ah, yes, a powerful tool that is going to allow me to essentially shrink myself and shrink other things into various sizes. Not just make us smaller, but also make us larger as well. It has a lot of uses. So if I charge this bad boy up, we can open the interface, and I'll make myself as small as I can go, which is 0.2. And then I can shift right click or use the hotkey. It does have a hotkey if you want to use that. And now we are tiny Chosen. Very, very tiny Chosen, actually. And now we should be able to easily fit into that area. Notice how we're smaller than a block. Oh, I love this effect. Yes. And so this allows me to fit right in here and place in all of these fluid pipes. Perfect. Now, you know what? I was thinking, let's actually not use fluid pipes here, mostly for the looks. I actually want to use Thermal's fluid ducts, which now exist, and we have filtering possibilities within them. I think these are going to add to the aesthetic. Oh, yes. That feels so much more mechanical related compared to using the pipes mod. Now, I wonder if this is going to work without a servo. If I just send it, oh, that makes these even better, because this can auto feed. And so it just auto fed directly in there. No servo needed. It just works. Now with this machine, I think the girders from Create are going to be some of the coolest looking things we can use. Oh man, I just need some andesite, right? So I'll throw some of that in there. And we should be looking pretty good, being able to make a bunch of andesite alloy to be able to make these things, these metal girders, which I think look really good. Oh, we need these to be sheets. Hey, we actually have a machine for that too. And what makes these girders so cool is you can place them down like a solid shaft, but then you can make them look like a beam or a bar that runs across. And so this feels very industrial, and this machine feels very industrial, so it fits. Now, as far as routing the power around, I'm going to utilize also Thermal's flex ducts. These can actually carry quite a bit of power, and so I should be able to just tap them in. They just look so good when they're connected to the mod itself, and I really feel like this deserves to be all connected to each other. And of course, later on, this can all be connected into our power system, but we're going to have to get that set up eventually. Now, to tap in and hook up to this stuff over here, I'm just going to run it directly down the bottom here. And so we should be able to send our power directly underneath into the next room and or to any room that we're going to need power until we get full wireless power set up. And we can just run it underneath here, allowing us to move our machines around. So with that, oh boy, I think we are set. So I've just got to move this. I also moved my upgrades out of this into one of the other main machines. And now this setup is going to look much, much cleaner because we're going to be able to just send our power under the floor here like this. So now we have our pulverizer and we're going to have our multi-servo press. And these should all be receiving power. For example, if I put iron in here, just make sure we know power is routing around. Let's start to use some of this. And we should see this staying completely filled. And yeah, we're looking pretty good. And power is a-flowing. Now, with all of these running and just producing the 40 RF per tick that they can produce, and this one also having the upgrades with 640, that does leave us with this setup right here, producing about 2040 RF per tick, and it is very simple to set up. And this power right here is going to hold us over for a little bit of time, allowing us to get some resources automated and hopefully dive into a storage mod and give us access to some wireless power options. So now, if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video, guys, a huge thumbs up. I really do appreciate you. Let me know down in the comments below, what was your first power setup, or what is your first power setup planned on being? I would love to hear from you down in the comments below. And guys, with that, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to FA Aesthetic. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member, and of course supporting in one of the best ways possible. I thank you all so very much for watching. I appreciate you. I will of course see you in the next one. And as always, yet again, thanks for watching. Bye guys.